everybody. Welcome back to your favorite print-on-demand podcast, the Sales on Demand Show. My name is Adam, and this is actually a re-recording of an episode that I had put out earlier. My computer crashed. So this is episode 135, version 1.2. And the title of this episode is, I'm 40. And this is how I stay in the best shape of my life. So yeah, this is a little bit of like a personal wellness episode, I guess you could call it. But I don't know, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think that success in life it's not just about making money. But I will be talking about making money, and have been talking more recently about whether the recession is going to hurt sales or whatever. So I'll be getting back into that. But I've been spending a lot of time training and trying to be a better version of what I already am. So I just thought I would share the journey of that. So interestingly enough, sales are actually going pretty good this year. We're kind of in a Father's Day season right now. And I'm seeing a boost in sales. Not more than last year, but about the same. And of course, overall, it's more than last year. Almost every year so far, my sales go up because, I'm always adding new products. And, so my sales go up even if overall people are buying less stuff online because I'm always adding more products. So I'll sell more because I'm a bigger share of the market. Now, other sellers I know that I talk to are going down. Their sales are going down. So that's interesting. But I think this year is going to be the best sales of my entire life. And I've got a really good strategy that seems to be working well. And by Christmas time, I should have realized that strategy. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I thought I would just share with you guys some of the things I've been doing this summer, spring, whatever it is. I guess it's almost summer. It's June the 15th, which technically means that summer is 5 days around the corner. And here in Alberta, it has been raining for, I think, almost a week at this point. I've never seen this much rain in Alberta. Of course, Calgary is flooding again. Not surprising, but not as bad as they did about 9 years ago. 9 years ago, at about this same time of year, there was a huge flood in a whole bunch of cities in southern Alberta, cities and towns, that actually caused almost $1 billion in damage. It was a lot of money in damage. It flooded homes. It even just carried homes away. It was pretty bad. There was one small town of 16,000 people that was completely evacuated. Nobody was there because the water was 6 feet high, and it was wild. I was working in law enforcement then. I had to go around knocking on doors in downtown Calgary and tell people, yeah, I think you have to evacuate. The water's rising. And even then, I was sort of half-heartedly doing it, and I didn't realize just how bad it was going to get. So, interesting memories, and it's hard to believe that was 9 years ago now. But it's not as bad this year, mostly because it's just steady rain. It's not one big rainfall, but it's still a lot of rain. And it's not looking like it's letting up at all. So yeah, it'll be an interesting year. I'm sure the farmers are happy. So let's get into this. I have always been interested in health my whole life. My mother was like a nutritionist in a not a standard nutritionist where she goes to nutritionist school and a dietitian. She was more of like an alt lifestyle nutritionist. So my family, when I was growing up, we always had weird food that we would eat. So I'm accustomed to thinking about food and eating and health in a more focused way. And I look at other families and I realize that it's not something that comes up on the radar. So it's one of those things that I've always been a part of my life, I guess. And well, when I was a kid, here's what I went through as a youth. It was a weird time for me. So as far back as I can remember, we started off as vegetarians. My mother was the driver of the whole thing. My dad was just along for the ride, but she decided that we were going to be vegetarians. So for a pretty long time, we had no meat, and we would eat like meat replacements. So we had a lot of tofu, and I remember eating these veggie burgers, and I remember thinking that they actually weren't too bad. They actually tasted pretty decently. So it wasn't like I was absolutely miserable at that time of my life, but it was just I kind of liked meat, and I guess I sort of wished I could have eaten more meat, but it wasn't the meat that really got me. It was actually the sugar, or the lack of sugar. My mother was very strict about sugar. So I didn't get any sugar, and when I was a kid, I was a sugar fiend. Anytime I had a chance to eat sugar, I would just eat as much of it as I could. So there was a few times where I would sneak out and I would buy candy, and I'd have to hide it because I'd get in trouble if they found it. And when I was in school, we had this door-to-door sales thing where you'd sell these chocolate almonds, and I could not resist myself. I had a box of them that I was supposed to sell door to door, but instead, I just ate them all. So, yeah, I was a little piggy, and I don't know. I'm lucky that I didn't turn into a little chubby kid when I was younger, but I sure loved sugar, and probably to my mother's great chagrin, I did not restrain myself very much. So eventually, though, I kind of grew out of that, and my parents grew out of their obsession with vegetarianism. We went back into a more normal lifestyle, started eating meat, but we've always been conscious of the food that we're eating. So that's always been something in the back of my mind. And when I got married, I decided that, we were going to be a health conscious family. And I knew it was a little bit risky to do this because I didn't want my kids to turn into sugar fiends, but we were going to try to not give our children that much sugar. So I kind of did the same thing that my parents did with me, and I just didn't give my kids that much sugar. Now they eat sugar now, and honestly they eat too much of it, so kind of got a little bit lazy about that. But we still eat pretty healthy, and now I'm all about fitness and working out because I'm 40 now. So I can't afford to live the way I did when I was 20. Although when I was 20, I actually lived pretty good. When I just got married and I was 20, I didn't drink. I just refused to drink, and to the point where even though I was in the Navy, all of my Navy coworkers were trying to get me to go to a bar and drink, and I just steadily refused, to the point where you would have thought that I was a Puritan or a recovering alcoholic. To the point, like, they tried their best to get me to drink, and I think I maybe had one drink, and they celebrated that as a victory. But yeah, I just refused to eat unhealthy and to be unhealthy. So I didn't have any regular exercise routine, but I was always fairly active because I was in the military, and it's fairly easy to stay fit without really trying when you're young. So I remember being on military training courses, and I was able to run a 5 kilometer run in about 30 minutes. And that was the first time I'd ever run 5 kilometers. And I felt like garbage afterwards. But I remember timing myself, and it was 30 minutes. It was exactly 30 minutes, or maybe like a couple seconds over. And I didn't know if that was good or bad, but that was the first And the only time I ever ran 5 kilometers, I was not a fan of running. Just not a fan at all. And I wasn't a fan of running up until very recently. But I was always relatively fit. I went into law enforcement, and I remember weighing myself. And I was 146 pounds. And it's probably not quite 20 years ago, but it's pretty close to 20 years ago now. And I was like, oh, cool, I'm 146 pounds. Well, now I'm 186 pounds. And I look back at that and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I was ever that skinny. So it's funny looking back on your 20s and remembering like just how easy everything was. Like you could eat whatever you want. And I did. I ate whatever I wanted. Never once denied myself a treat or a snack or anything like that. Never once. I have no memory of ever being concerned about the food that I put in my mouth, except, trying to eat when I was eating to eat good food, right? So we would eat vegetables. We'd steam broccoli, put butter on it. We'd eat whole wheat food and decent meat. So that probably helped. But I still ate, a decent amount of sugar. I don't remember ever being too concerned about that. But it still didn't really impact me greatly. I was able to just be fit and healthy, relatively, without trying. Well, moving forward to the 30s, when I was 30, everything kind of crashed. So I started working a job where it was shift work. And shift work, if you don't already know how bad for you shift work is, let's put it this way. Working shift work is about the same impact on your body as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. It's very, very taxing on your body because sleep is healing. Your body heals when you sleep. So if you're not getting enough sleep and you're undergoing stress, your body is kind of degrading and it's not healing from the damage. So the shift work that I was doing it was grinding me down. And I did that job for 10 years. And I was finally able to get out of it, but not without some cost to my body. While I was working that job, I started drinking. And this was, early in my 30s. So I started drinking. But mostly the worst thing was I started using nicotine. I was using chewing tobacco. And you would think that in your 30s you would know better than to start using probably the most addictive substance on the planet, nicotine. And I became really addicted to that. I mean, so addicted that I would go through a tin of chewing tobacco every single day. And these were $25 each, so it was an expensive habit. A damaging habit, and of course my wife was not thrilled about this, so I said, I'm going to quit doing nicotine. So I started drinking instead, which definitely was a smart replacement for... I can laugh about it now, but I sure didn't laugh about it back then. I thought it was the smartest thing in the world. I'm like, I'm going to stop chewing tobacco and I'm going to start drinking alcohol. Well, hopefully it won't take you very long to realize that the drinking alcohol also turned into a problem, and I became an alcoholic. Like, straight up, I was an alcoholic, and I was actually arrested for impaired driving, and that's what really that was the crash. That was the real crash right there. I realized, what am I doing with my life? I am behaving like a complete moron. So I quit drinking, quit doing nicotine, went into actual rehab for alcohol, went to Alcoholics Anonymous for 2.5 years, and to this day, I still understand that alcohol is dangerous for me, so I don't drink. Now, I'm not at risk for alcoholism again because what was causing the alcoholism was the stress of the shift work and just the stress of life in general. My life was a lot more stressful back then than it is now. So the drinking was a compensation for that. And I was also eating like garbage, not necessarily worse, but just not well. And that was contributing to the overall decline. I really wasn't exercising that much. I was in martial arts, but not, that's not really that much. 1 or 2 times per week I would go and we would do, fairly hard training for an hour and a half, but that was it. An hour and a half a week isn't very much overall. It's better than nothing for sure, but it's just not enough. So I quit drinking, quit nicotine, and I focused on sort of the mental health part of things. We still had a farm, so that was kind of a big thing for me, was the farm, and it kept me fairly active. There's a lot of work to do on a farm. There was one summer where I spent probably, I don't know, maybe like 150 hours putting up barbed wire fences, which is a lot of work. And that made me pretty fit. I was tanned, I was fit, and I would get up early in the morning, go out there, put up barbed wire fences until basically nighttime. And that was kind of my routine. And we were trying to raise sheep, and we were having cattle grazing. It was a big thing. And it was good for my health to be doing that, but at the same time I was working shift work. So that wasn't good for my health at all. All in all, it was, good and bad, but still not as good as it could have been. Now we sold the farm. Almost, I think it was 4 years ago now, and we moved into town. And then I got a different job. And that was kind of the start of a very major change in my life. And I was at the end of my 30s and running into my 40s. And I was like, the thing that really got me is I jumped on a scale for the first time in a long time. And I realized I'm 180 pounds. How did I get to be 180 pounds? I mean, I'm not a tall person. So 180 pounds on me was quite a bit of weight. And it was all kind of like chub. Like I was legitimately chubby. And I was, somebody did a challenge. They did a weight challenge. They're like, how much weight can you lose over, this 3-month period? So I decided I would join that challenge. And there was even like a prize and everything, like the biggest loser. It was kind of like those weight loss challenges that they did on TV. I can't even remember how long ago that was, but it was probably it was 4 years ago now at least. And so I decided, I'm going to start working out and going hard on that and try to lose some weight. So I did. Started going to the gym, started doing some cardio at the gym, not too intense. I wasn't focused on cardio as a major thing. I was focused on weights. I wanted to look like fit and jacked. I wanted to look good, but I also wanted to look a little skinnier. So I worked out hard for 3 months, and do you know how much weight I lost? None. Not a pound. In fact, I might have been heavier after those 3 months than I was before that. And I was perplexed. I was like, well, I'm not losing any weight here. What's going on? Well, it turns out that I was gaining muscle. So I started to look more muscular. And I'm not skinny. I don't look like a model. But I've managed to maintain kind of that look of someone who kind of works out. So I've had people say, oh, looks like you've been working out. And that made me feel pretty good about myself. I was very happy that people were noticing that. And I felt happy. Looking in the mirror, I was like, I like this person. At least I like them more than the old person. I don't even know if I have a picture of myself before I started really working out, but maybe I do somewhere. I was pretty blobby. You know, it was looking more like a pear than a pencil for sure. Now I still don't look like a pencil, and that sometimes irritates me. But I don't know if there's any way that that's going to change, because when I tell you everything that I've been doing, you're going to be astonished at just how much exercise I'm doing. And to this day, this very second, I'm still 180, I think I'm 184 pounds now. So I've actually gained a little bit of weight. Now, it's frustrating, but at this point, I'm not that concerned about it because this just might be me now. And I still see success in other areas, and these are the areas that I think that matter the most. So, of course, when COVID started, I was I was working out hard because I wanted to join a certain police force, and the fitness test for police services. It when I was younger, I did this fitness test a whole bunch of times, and it used to be very easy, or at least relatively easy. In fact, there was a few times where I had done the fitness test after maybe like a week and a half of really working on cardio. The fitness test used to be this circuit where you'd run the circuit, you're pretending to chase somebody, and then it's very intense, but it was short. So it was about 4 minutes of running, and then they changed it. So I took the fitness test again in 2020 in March, and not only did I not pass it, I failed it by a huge margin because they added a a shuttle relay. They call it the pacer test or the Leger 20-meter. It is literally the nightmare of many athletes, this pacer test, and they added it to just test your cardio. So not only did you have to do this circuit, but then you had to do this pacer test. And if you're not familiar with the pacer test, just look it up. It's a really difficult, challenging test, but it really tests your cardio. You run back and forth between a 20-meter distance, and it gets faster every time you do it. So every minute it speeds up a little bit. So you're not just doing a steady run. It gets faster and faster, and you're changing directions. And that actually is difficult to do. I mean, you could run in a straight line and speed up your pace, but the changing direction thing takes energy, and you lose momentum, and it's actually really a challenging test. And I don't even know if I could pass that pacer test. And honestly, I don't even care at this point because it's not my goal anymore. Like, my goal is not to join a police force. I'm done with law enforcement. I'm done with working full time. But I'm still working on fitness. It's just that the goals changed. So I remember I failed this pacer test, and I felt like I was going to die. Like, my chest was literally like burning and in pain, and I was like, this is weird because I have been working out a lot, but I need to work out harder. And this was in March of 2020, and I'm sure we all remember what happened in March of 2020. The government decided that we needed to shut everything down, which definitely was a great decision. Totally didn't have any long-term consequences like inflation and, inflation and vax mandates. Nah, definitely was just, hey, let's shut down for 15 days. That sounds like a smart idea. Well, yeah. So while everything was shut down, I didn't have access to the gym. And it killed me, and I'm like, there's no way that I'm just not going to sit here and get fat. There's no way that I'm going to do that. So I started running. And I'll be honest with you, before this moment, I did not enjoy running. I'd never really done any serious running, and it just never was something that I cared about. I was more about doing cardio, but short duration cardio. So I would go and I would do intervals. An interval is when you run for, a minute and then you walk for a minute, you run for a minute and walk. So you're sprinting and then walking. It's easier to do that, and it actually gets you pretty fit in a shorter period of time. So you don't have to run 10 kilometers to achieve a relatively good level of fitness. So if you're looking at trying to get relatively fit in a short period of time, interval training is a good way to do that because it stresses your body more than a long, slow run. So I was doing intervals, but that wasn't working. So I realized I got to do more cardio. I can't just do 10 minutes of 15 minutes of cardio twice a week. It's got to be something more serious. So I went out there, started running. My first run was about 1.75 kilometers, and I was I was a hurting unit at the end of that 1.75 kilometers. I felt that. My legs felt it, my chest felt it, and I was like, wow, I really am out of shape. But I was determined, so I just kept going out there and running. And I would increase my distance a little bit every week. So every week, and I was reading up on it, I was watching YouTube videos, and I just kind of decided this is the thing that I'm going to be doing now. I'm going to be running, going to be, working on cardio because there's no gym. They shut the gym down. And I would do a little bit of weight training in the basement because I had some weights. And I eventually collected a lot more weights. So I have almost a full, set of weights, and I've got a pull-up bar, and I've got pretty much enough that if I didn't have the gym, I would be able to work out in my basement. I have a treadmill now and everything too, so it's pretty decent, and I've used that treadmill quite a bit. But running outside is definitely better. A treadmill is just not the same. Running outside is much harder to do. So I noticed that right away too. So eventually I got to the point where I could run 5 kilometers again. It was really slow, but I could do it. And then I was like, okay, I can run 5 kilometers. Well, maybe let's keep pushing to 10. And it eventually stopped. I stopped caring about passing this fitness test. I never did take that police fitness test again, and I withdrew my application to join the police. I withdrew it. And the reason I withdrew it was I realized that being a police officer means that you're just a hired thug. And I'm sorry to say it like that, but I did not want to be just some government's hired thug. After 2020, watching the cops not deal with rioters, they would stand there and rioters would be burning buildings down, the cops would do nothing. But then they would send the cops to close down a church or close down someone's business. And I was like, I don't want to be that guy. Like, I don't want to be reliant on a job and then have to refuse to do something and get fired. Why don't I just not get into that job in the first place, and then I won't have to worry about that? So it turns out that that was a great decision, and I make so much more money now doing what I do than I would have if I'd have been a police officer. To this day, that I realized that was the greatest decision, the best decision I've made in the last 10 years. And I could not be happier with my life right now. So let me share with you how things are going in 2022. Because I've been running for 2 years now. And I'm starting to see kind of a pattern in how I'm doing here. So nowadays, I run distance running. My joints do not like sprinting very much, and I am still too heavy to do sprinting. I call myself sometimes a hippopotamus that likes to jog. Like, I am thick. So I'm not like chubby and fat, but I'm still heavy. And it kind of drives me crazy a little bit because I've been doing as much as I can to lose weight. So I started doing something called intermittent fasting. And I've been doing intermittent fasting for quite a while now. probably nearly 8 months. I did it all winter, and it did help. I didn't gain any weight over the winter, but I didn't really lose any weight over the winter either. Um, Now, at the end of last summer, I had been slowly losing a little bit of weight, but it was a torturously slow process. And when I say slow, I mean like I was down to 178 pounds at the end of summer, and I was like, wow, that took so much work to get even that far. So now I'm back up to like the other day I weighed myself and I was 186 pounds, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, what is going on here? So I just cannot afford to play games here, and I've decided that a healthy lifestyle is just going to become my lifestyle. And so I was kind of letting myself slide on the intermittent fasting. And sometimes you have to, because if you're going for a long run in the morning, you can't just not eat. You just can't do that. It's not going to work. But I the intermittent fasting is interesting because it's less about losing weight and it's more about keeping my body healthy in terms of like diabetes and my blood sugar and everything, and just being moderate in everything. So I still eat the same kinds of food. I try to stay away from sugar as much as possible. It is hard. I do love cookies. And when you have one cookie, it's just so tempting to eat 10. So I kind of have to not eat any in order to just not eat 20 of them. But I do eat probably 2 apples a day. I eat full fat yogurt with fruit in it. And once in a while, I'll eat a banana smoothie. And those are pretty tasty. But I don't eat that much. I eat a lot of protein and a little bit of carbs. And I eat 2 meals a day with a few snacks in between. And I eat over an 8-hour window from noon to 8 p.m. So that's my eating window. So in the morning, I just get up and I have a black coffee, and then I don't eat till noon. And I'm usually pretty fine with that. In fact, sometimes I'm good enough that I'm like, I could probably just not eat until like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But then the hard part is I sometimes get hungry in the evening, so that's a tough one too. And it certainly doesn't help that, a lot of my job is sitting and talking because my mouth gets dry, and I want to eat something, not because I'm hungry, but because I'm passing the time or I'm bored or something like that. So yeah, the boredom eating thing is still a bit of a problem for me, but overall I'm happy with who I am now, and I am in the best shape of my life. And here's how I know I'm in the best shape of my life. I just ran 12.5 kilometers, and I did not die for that. So I've decided that I'm going to be an athlete, and I'm a dad athlete, right? So I'm not skinny and thin, but I have a tremendous amount of endurance, like an unbelievable amount of endurance. It took me almost 2 hours to run 12.5 kilometers. And I feel like I probably could have gone a little further than that, but I just ran out of time. So it looks like endurance is kind of one of my fortes. So it's kind of like in Lord of the Rings when Gimli the dwarf is like, we dwarves are great at sprinting, very very dangerous over short distances. I'm actually the opposite. I'm not great at sprinting, but I'm really good at a long and slow endurance kind of thing. So, if we ever had to walk from one province to another because we were being invaded by some country, I could probably do that. So, people in the Ukraine are actually doing that right now too. So, I sometimes think about that. I'm like, what if what situation would I ever be in that I would have to do that? And that's probably the only situation that I can think of is like kind of like an apocalypse thing where you'd have to walk to find food or walk here and walk there. I could probably do that. I'd be good at that. So now, here's my training schedule. I am working out 5 to 7 times per week, and sometimes twice a day. And that's more so in the summer, because the summer is just so beautiful, and I cannot stand to not be outside. Although, it's not very nice out today, but I'm still going to be going out for a run, because you can't always just work out when it's nice. You have to be training when it's not nice. And I'm going to have to sort of adapt myself to train in wintertime, which sucks. I do not like running in the cold, but I think I'm going to have to just do it anyway, because I want to keep up a pretty good training base level over the winter. So one of the things I did this summer is I signed up for a triathlon. Every year, our small town hosts a pretty decent sized triathlon. It's not a full Ironman triathlon, which is a crazy amount of biking and running and swimming. This is more of an amateur triathlon. So it's 15 kilometers of biking, 5 kilometers of running, and 500 meters of swimming. So you're doing that all at once. So you're biking, you're swimming, biking, and then running. And I signed up for that. And then I've been training for that, and I feel ready for that. But then I also signed up for a half marathon, which is 21.5 kilometers of running. That is significantly further than I've ever run in my entire life. And I thought to myself at the beginning of the summer, I'm like, I would like to run a half marathon, but I'm kind of scared of that because I've never run that far. The furthest I'd ever run was, I think, 11 kilometers in one go, and that was a long run. It takes me about an hour and 20 minutes to run 10 kilometers, which is pretty slow. Like, that's not very fast. I'm not a fast runner. But like I said, I can run for a long time. Just really slow. It's still running, but it's just not fast running. So I'm not going to win any races. But I was thinking about it. I'm like, I want to run a half marathon, but I'm scared. So I'm just going to sign up for it. And then I'm committed. So I did. I signed up for the half marathon. And I joined a couple of little local challenges. So every year in our small town, we have a wellness challenge. And you join for $20, and they even give you a t-shirt. And you get points for doing activity, and it's mostly to keep seniors active, but it was fun. It's fun, and I get to meet a whole bunch of people in my local hometown here, and everybody's really excited about this wellness thing. So it's not even just about, physical activity. It's about mental wellness too, which I kind of like. I kind of like the whole idea of just making everybody more mentally well, spending more time with people. So I also joined a track club. So every Thursday, I go, and a former high school track coach puts like 7 or 8 of us through some fairly intense running. And it's fun. Aside from the cardio thing, I'm just enjoying the whole, just being active thing. And I've decided that if I lose weight, great. If I don't, well, then I don't. It's not about necessarily looking like The Rock or, Vin Diesel in the movie Fast and the Furious. Though I'm never going to look like that. And it doesn't matter how much I train. It's just those guys, that's their job. Like, that's all they do every day. And I have a job, so I can't spend all day doing that. But I want to be healthy. I want to live a long life. And I want to see my kids grow up. I don't want to die of heart disease. So yeah, that's a big deal for me. Like, I want to be healthy in my older age. I'm not old yet. I don't consider myself to be old, but I'm not young anymore. So I'm reaching that middle ground there. And this is kind of that moment in people's lives where they either take life seriously or they just kind of give up. And I've seen a lot of people who I'm like, yeah, that guy's given up on life, or he's given up on trying to be healthy. And those people, they die early. And I don't want to die early. I know I'm going to die someday. That's inevitable. I'm fine with that. But I don't want to die early. I don't want to die at like 65 because I had diabetes and I had a heart attack or something like that. That's not cool. And I still, not only that, even if I live to just 65, if my quality of life is poor and I can't do anything, that too would be pretty bad. So, I mean, every summer I try to go and I volunteer at a summer camp for kids. And they have a lot of like physical activity. And when you're a volunteer, you got to participate in that physical activity. And one of my points of personal pride is that I can still play tag with these, 14-year-old kids. And I'm not the fastest, but I can keep up. And that's really all I care about at this point. A 41-year-old can keep up with a 14-year-old. And maybe do a little better on the long stretches than they do. But at least I can still do it. And it's fun. I enjoy that kind of thing. I may feel it the next day, but I love it. Now, if you're wondering how you can make this same change in your life, here I got 3 points here, and I'm going to lay them out for you guys pretty quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this, but this is something I think everybody needs to look at in their own life. So, number one is be brutally honest with yourself. Where are you right now? Like, go jump on the scale and look at that number. That's you right now, okay? Look in the mirror and say, this is me right now. But I can change myself. Not only that, it wouldn't be a terrible idea to go get an actual physical and find out, what's your, all of the little measurements that they measure for health, right? So I don't know if there's still the cholesterol level, but that's one of those things that they measure. And then say, all right, this is who I am right now. Am I heading towards a heart attack? Am I heading towards disease? Am I heading towards a life where I can't do anything? Or I have to say, no, I can't participate in that because I'm not fit enough to do it? Is that where I'm headed? So be brutally honest with yourself. It's okay to be honest with yourself. I'm not saying shame yourself, but sometimes a little bit of like looking in the mirror and saying, it helps you change, right? You don't have to hate yourself, but you can be dissatisfied with who you are at this very moment. And then you start doing something. Start doing something that you can sustain. You don't have to go and try to run a 10K tomorrow. It's not going to happen. It took me the better part of a full year or months and months and months over an entire summer before I could run 10 kilometers. And that was a struggle to do that much. And now I'm pushing for 20 kilometers. But you got to start somewhere. So start something that you can sustain and do it 2 to 3 times per week. Don't make excuses about why you can't do it. Just get out there and do it. Like Shia LaBeouf says, just do it. Then, when you start seeing results, scale that up. Pick something to shoot for. So maybe sign up for some kind of, training event or run or something like that. So sign up for a 5-kilometer run walk. It could be like, the run walk for cancer. I mean, I don't really care about raising money for cancer, but I do care about me being fit. And if there's an excuse for me to go on to train for something, then I'll take that excuse. And I find that I train much harder when I have something that I'm training for. When I have something that I am looking towards, I work very, very hard to achieve that. It's a motivator, and I can see that thing sitting on the wall. And I'm like, I want that. I want that result, and I'm going to push myself to get that. It takes time, though. So don't injure yourself, and don't expect more from your body than you're capable of delivering. Sometimes the best you're going to be able to do is 45 minutes of walking. But I mean, everybody can walk. So start with that and scale up. Cool, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. And yeah, we will be back next week on Wednesday with another episode. Adios.